At my sister Sylvia's wedding, she went all out to embarrass me. She plopped me at the rejection table, introduced me to everyone with the label, "still single," and even had her bridesmaids gossip about my supposedly pitiful love life. I thought I'd just have to tough it out, until an enigmatic stranger leaned in and whispered, "Pretend we're together." In that instant, her ideal day started to crumble, morphing into an opportunity for my sweet vengeance. If you've ever faced humiliation from a family that views singlehood as second class, smash that like button. Subscribe if you believe that karma can be surprisingly sweet, because this story shows that sometimes the ultimate revenge is served with a dash of undeniable envy. The wedding venue shone bright with golden lights and glittering chandeliers. Yet my focus was solely on the table number gripped in my hand, table 12. The singles table. The dump table. It was clear that Sylvia had intentionally placed me here to announce to the world that her older sister was still alone. I'm Anna, and I need to explain how I became the family disappointment on my sister's picture-perfect wedding day. Despite our lack of closeness, the rivalry between Sylvia and me had turned toxic over the past year. After her engagement to Robert, a high-flying investment banker from a well-off family, she made it her life's mission to remind me, at 32 years old, that I was still without a partner. During family dinners at our parents' home, she'd casually suggest, maybe it's time to try dating apps again, with an air of feigned concern. You can't be choosy forever. Time's running out, Anna. Our mother, Diane, offered sympathetic nods while our father, Adam, awkwardly shifted topics, yet Sylvia never ceased her relentless taunting. It almost seemed like my relationship failures provided her with a sense of validation for her own joy. On the morning of her nuptials, she called me under the guise of offering sisterly advice. "Anna, sweetheart, I know today could be tough for you," she declared, dripping with condescension, observing the happiness around her. "Just try not to look too miserable in the photos, all right? And please, avoid chatting up the bartender like you did at Cousin Joanna's wedding." That should have been my first sign of the sabotage ahead. When I arrived at the Grandview Manor reception hall, clad in a stunning navy dress I had meticulously selected, Sylvia's maid of honor, Marion, approached me with a clipboard and the type of smile people sport when about to deliver disappointing news. "Oh, Anna, let me escort you to your table," she said, echoing the fake sweetness that Sylvia excelled in. Table 12 was secluded in the back corner, right by the kitchen doors, where catering staff kept bustling in and out. My tablemates comprised Sylvia's single colleagues who barely acknowledged me and our elderly great-aunt Janet, who spent the night critiquing the music volume and questioning if I had thought about lowering my standards. The real embarrassment hit during family introductions. The reception was buzzing when Sylvia took it upon herself to display me like a cautionary tale. She grabbed my arm and dragged me over to a group of Robert's high society family members. "And this is my sister Anna," she proudly announced, draping her arm around Robert's shoulder as if to stake her claim. "She's our little career woman, concentrating on work instead of finding someone special." The group offered polite smiles while I stood there, feeling blood rush to my face. Mrs. Wellington, Robert's aunt, scrutinized me with pity. "Oh, don't worry," she consoled, patting my arm with her manicured hand. "There's someone out there for everyone. Have you tried church groups?" My nephew Thomas met his wife at a prayer circle. Sylvia chuckled, not in kindness but in gleeful enjoyment of my discomfort. "Anna's very independent." "Right, sis?" Her emphasis on independent felt like a label of shame. "I just haven't encountered the right person yet," I managed to reply, keeping my tone steady. "Well, you can't wait forever," chimed in Robert's mother, Rebecca. My daughter waited too long and now she's 45 with fertility issues. Don't make the same blunder. For the next hour, I braved a barrage of unsolicited relationship advice from Sylvia's friends and Robert's relatives. Every chat seemed pre-planned. It felt as if Sylvia had coached them on how to diminish me. Joseph, Robert's business partner, suggested lowering my expectations. Christopher, a family acquaintance, recounted the story of his spinster aunt who found love at 50 with a widower who had 6 kids. Even the photographer appeared to be in on the joke. During family photo time, he queried whether I had a +1 and seemed genuinely baffled when I responded no. The tipping point came during the bouquet toss. "Ladies, gather on the dance floor," the DJ proclaimed with an over-the-top enthusiasm that felt a tad insulting. I attempted to hide behind a marble pillar, but Marion quickly spotted me, yanking my arm. "Come on, Anna. This could be your moment." Before I realized it, I was thrust into a circle of giggling, squealing women in their 20s, all buzzing with excitement as Sylvia prepared to toss her bouquet. These were Robert's younger cousins, fresh out of their college days, with their entire futures waiting for them. Standing among them, I felt anxious and out of place. Sylvia locked eyes with me, smirked, and intentionally hurled the bouquet away from me. A 24-year-old named Chloe grabbed it as the crowd erupted in cheers. Sylvia embraced her and stated, loud enough for all to hear, "Looks like Anna's going to have to wait a bit longer." The ensuing laughter felt like shards of glass against my skin. I noticed people gazing at me with that painful mix of pity and relief that often accompanies someone else's embarrassment. I retreated to my table, struggling to hold back tears of fury and humiliation. What was meant to be a celebration of love had transformed into a public display of my shattered self-worth. It crossed my mind to leave, to slip away unnoticed before Sylvia could witness my tears. Just as I began to collect my purse, a deep voice came softly from behind me. "Act like you're with me." I whirled around, surprised to see a man clad in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. He stood tall at around 6 feet 2 inches, with dark hair and an air of confidence that commanded attention from across the room. His eyes held warmth mixed with determination, and there was something undeniably magnetic about him. "Excuse me?" I breathed. "Your sister just took 10 minutes to explain to my business associate how worried she is about you being by yourself," he remarked, smoothly taking a seat beside me. "I'm guessing you didn't invite her to air your personal life to strangers." He was spot on. I could see Sylvia across the venue, gesturing in my direction while chatting with Robert's colleagues, undoubtedly lamenting my inability to find love. "Hope you don't mind, right?" he asked, but his tone signaled he had his own agenda. I shook my head, too shocked to reply. For the first time that evening, I felt seen. "I'm Thomas," he introduced himself, extending his hand with a friendly smile. "Robert's cousin from Boston, and you must be Anna, the sister who's clearly in need of rescuing from becoming a perpetual singleton." Despite everything, I couldn't help but chuckle. "That's me, the family's charity case." "Well, that's about to change," he said, his smile both comforting and playfully enigmatic. Thomas draped his arm casually along the back of my chair and leaned in, talking to me as if we were old friends. Instantly, I noticed heads turning our way. Sylvia, mid-conversation with the wedding planner, did a double take when she spotted us. Her smile faltered for a fleeting moment before she excused herself, striding toward our table with her train trailing behind her like a weapon. "Anna," she exclaimed, her voice an octave higher than normal. "I had no idea you were acquainted with Thomas." "Just old friends," Thomas replied smoothly, his hand brushing mine on the table. We lost touch for a bit, but you know how these things go. Sylvia's expression shifted slightly, revealing a crack in her flawless wedding facade that hinted at her confusion. Really? Anna never mentioned you. I'm a private person, I finally interjected, regaining some confidence. You know how I prioritize work-life balance. The irony struck me. Sylvia had spent the entire evening broadcasting my lack of a romantic partner, only to now pry for insights into a non-existent relationship. How wonderful. Sylvia remarked, her tone dripping with insincerity. How long have you two been reconnecting? Long enough, Thomas replied, his grin revealing nothing while hinting at everything. As Sylvia walked away, visibly irritated by the lack of juicy details, Thomas leaned towards me and whispered conspiratorially, "She looks like she just bit into a lemon." I couldn't suppress my smile. She's not used to not being in the know about my life, or me overshadowing her in any way. Good, he laughed. Let's keep her guessing. For the next hour, Thomas played his role flawlessly. He fetched me drinks from the bar, laughed at my jokes, and touched my hand just enough to make our connection seem authentic. More importantly, he genuinely listened as I shared about my marketing job, my passion for hiking, and my recent trip to Ireland. You're not what I expected, he mentioned during a lull between songs. What did you anticipate? I asked. Based on your sister's description, someone desperate and sad, he said candidly. Instead, I'm with someone sharp, witty, and honestly, I can't understand why you're single. I have standards, I blurted out without a moment's hesitation. His laughter was genuine and warm, soothing something in my chest. Good for you. At that point, Sylvia was openly fixated on our table, whispering to Marion, who couldn't help but glance our way with evident curiosity. Meanwhile, Robert's relatives, who had previously dismissed me, were now casting intrigued looks towards Thomas, clearly recognizing his social stature and pondering how I snagged someone so obviously successful. The sweet taste of revenge was already more delightful than I had hoped. But Thomas wasn't finished. When the band shifted to slower tunes, he rose, extending his hand with a confident grin. Dance with me, he commanded, not even phrasing it as a question. On the dance floor, his hand rested on my waist while mine perched on his shoulder, and I felt the gaze of every individual who had previously dished out unsolicited advice on my love life. Yet, rather than feeling exposed, I felt enveloped in his protection. Thomas moved with a natural rhythm, suggesting he had been dancing since childhood, and being in his embrace felt curiously comfortable. Your sister is watching, he whispered as we swayed together. I know, I replied. She looks like she's about to explode. Oh yes, mission accomplished. Looking up at him, this stranger who had restored my dignity with such a simple act, I felt almost whole again. But then Sylvia swooped in. Mind if I cut in? She said, arriving beside us with Robert in tow. Her wedding smile was overly tight, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. Actually, yes, Thomas stated politely yet firmly. We're having a moment here. Sylvia's expression flickered through several phases before landing on forced cheerfulness. Oh, of course. I just wanted to express how thrilled I am that Anna finally found someone. We were all quite worried about her. Weren't you? Thomas's tone remained neutral, but his eyes were sharp as he replied. Based on what I've seen tonight, it looks like you've been more focused on showcasing her single status rather than supporting her. The directness of his words momentarily left Sylvia speechless. Robert shifted awkwardly beside her, sensing the tension but not grasping its origins. "We just want what's best for Anna," Sylvia stammered, her confidence visibly cracking. "Then perhaps you should treat her with the respect she deserves, instead of turning her love life into entertainment for your wedding guests," Thomas responded calmly. I had never seen Sylvia look so shaken. Her carefully constructed wedding confidence had crumbled, making her appear small for the first time that evening. "I don't know what Anna told you, but she didn't need to say anything," Thomas interjected. "I can see how you've treated her all night long." It was then that Robert finally intervened, clearly uneasy about the public confrontation. "Maybe we should let them return to dancing." As they walked away, Sylvia's composure was shattered. I could see her hurriedly whispering to Marion, likely trying to figure out who Thomas was and how I had managed to snag someone so far out of my league. That felt incredible. I confessed as we continued to dance. "We're not finished yet," Thomas replied, flashing a smile that sent my heart racing. Throughout the evening, he made sure I was never left alone. When dinner was served, he requested to be moved to a better table, claiming his dietary restrictions meant he needed to be closer to the kitchen. The staff, clearly aware of Robert's family stature, immediately accommodated us. Our new table was at the focal point, allowing everyone to see us laughing and conversing like a genuine couple. Sylvia's friends, who had previously ignored me, suddenly wanted to engage with Thomas. Robert's relatives, once dismissive, now treated me with newfound respect and curiosity about my enigmatic boyfriend. Mrs. Wellington, who had earlier suggested church groups, was now eager to learn all about Thomas's family background. Upon discovering his credentials as a successful tech entrepreneur with an MBA from Harvard, her entire demeanor towards me shifted completely. "Anna, you dark horse," she exclaimed with authentic admiration. "You never mentioned you were seeing someone so accomplished." The ultimate act of vengeance unfolded during the garter toss. As Robert prepared to fling the garter to the single men, Thomas stepped forward with the confidence of someone who belonged exactly where he stood. "Wait!" Sylvia cried out in desperation. "Thomas, you're not single." Thomas glanced at me, then back at Sylvia, wearing a mysterious smile. "Actually, I am. Anna and I are taking it slow, re-establishing our connection." Coincidentally, the garter landed perfectly in his hands. Whether by luck or Robert's aim, I couldn't say. But the symbolism was unequivocal, especially for Sylvia. Traditionally, Thomas would place the garter on the leg of whoever caught the bouquet, but that young cousin Chloe had left early. "It seems we need a volunteer," the DJ declared. Thomas glanced at me, a question flickering in his eyes. I responded with a nod. Cheers erupted from the crowd as I settled into the chair, and Thomas crouched down, gently sliding the garter up my leg in a way that felt surprisingly personal for such a staged moment. The air was thick with potential, and I began to question if the spark between us was merely an illusion. Sylvia's face displayed barely restrained anger as she observed her single, seemingly insignificant sister basking in the spotlight at her own wedding. As the night drew to a close and guests started to trickle out, Thomas accompanied me to my car. The parking lot was tranquil, far from the prying eyes of wedding attendees and my relatives. "Thank you," I said, now alone with him. "I realized tonight was merely a performance, yet you rescued me from what could have been the most embarrassing event of my life." "What makes you believe it was just a show?" he questioned, his face serious. My heartbeat faltered. "Because you don't truly know me." "I know enough," he replied, stepping closer. "I can see you're kind, even when people are undeserving. You're resilient enough to handle a night full of shame without a word of dissent." You're gorgeous inside and out. And your sister is a fool for not recognizing how lucky she is to have you in her life. I felt tears on the verge of spilling, but this time they weren't due to embarrassment. Thomas, I understand this may have started as a rescue operation, he stated, but somewhere between the first dance and now, it turned into something real for me. He handed me a business card, the back adorned with his personal number in graceful handwriting. If you want to see me again, not for vengeance, not to make a statement, but because you genuinely want to, give me a call. I took the card with trembling hands. What if I want to call you tonight? He flashed that same charming smile that had first caught my eye. Then I will answer. Fast forward 3 months, and Thomas and I were officially a couple. 6 months later, we moved in together. Exactly 1 year after Sylvia's wedding, he proposed to me at the same hotel where our paths had first crossed. Sylvia's response to our engagement announcement was everything I could have wished for. The sister who had spent years making me feel unworthy of love was now compelled to witness me plan my wedding with a man who clearly cherished me, one from an even more affluent family than Robert. But the true sweet revenge wasn't in showing Sylvia she was mistaken about my worthiness for love. It was in understanding that I no longer required her validation. Thomas's respect and sincere love had revealed to me what I truly deserved, and I would never settle for less again. Our wedding was more intimate than Sylvia's, but bursting with joy. Instead of using the occasion to belittle anyone, we celebrated with those who genuinely wanted our happiness. Sylvia delivered a speech as my maid of honor, something she insisted on despite our tumultuous history. She spoke of her joy in seeing me find love, how Thomas was undoubtedly perfect for me, and how she had always believed I would meet someone special. The revisionist tale was astonishing. But I was unfazed. I had something far more precious than her approval. I had someone who recognized my value from the very start. Looking back, Sylvia's wedding was the lowest point of my life. Her cruelty revealed how I had allowed others to treat me, but it also led me to Thomas. Without her humiliation, I wouldn't have been open enough to accept assistance from a stranger. Sometimes, the individuals who wound us the most ultimately provide us with exactly what we need to transform our lives. Sylvia aimed to belittle me, yet she inadvertently orchestrated the situation for me to meet my future husband. How poetic is that? In her attempt to prove I was unlovable, she inadvertently guided me straight to the love of my life. If this tale has shown you that the ultimate revenge is simply thriving, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of karma and unexpected love. Have you ever experienced someone's malice spectacularly backfiring? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes the universe exhibits a sense of humor regarding justice, and occasionally, that humor paves the way to happily ever after.